What's up, guys? Welcome back to Dream a Little, the podcast that's all about helping you feel confident about your ABDL side. I'm your host, Lo. Thank you so much for listening. Today, we're continuing on with our conversation with Doug. If you missed last week's episode, I definitely recommend hitting pause on this one and checking out episode number 170 so you can hear a little bit more about Doug's background. As always, you can find links in the show notes of this episode at thelittlelounge.com/171. That's also where you'll find a link to my latest Nurturing Mommy roleplay episode. I publish a new roleplay every Monday. At the time of this recording, there are over 50 unique episodes for you to check out. So if you want to experience what it's like to have a nurturing mommy like me, be sure to check out thelittlelounge.com/171. All right, I won't make you wait any longer. Let's get started. So what are some reasons maybe like one of these meetings wouldn't go well? Is it just the fact that maybe you don't click on like a vanilla level?
Sometimes that. Sometimes I've found that people are they're more outgoing behind a closed door where they don't actually physically have to be in your presence. Right. And then as soon as they get in front of you, they become the most awkward person on the planet.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've actually had that before. Well, that's why I actually, since that experience, this person I was talking to through text mostly, right? Mm-hmm. I never got them on the phone first or video chatted with them before we met up. And then when we did meet up, like they just were pretty insecure. And it was like I was holding the whole conversation because they were just like really, really shy and quiet and reserved, and like there's nothing wrong with that, but a simple
who wouldn't
phone
be shy around you?
Oh, come on.
I'm serious. Like in terms of like what like the average person in like the ABDL community, like as far as like what males, there's a lot of ABDL males in the community, and as far as what they're used to seeing as far as like body types and personality and how outgoing people are and how attractive somebody is, like I could see easily how someone as yourself who's got a lot going for them, you're very active in your own lifestyle. You work out regularly, so you're very much in shape and look good, and you're also, into this taboo kink, and I could easily see somebody who is, a male who isn't necessarily as attentive to their own personal figure or anything else like that, meeting you for the first time and being like, wow,
you really
this girl
think so?
Likes diapers.
There's no way.
Yeah. No, it's totally a thing. It really is. Like, like sometimes there's this weird aura around some people in the community as far as like what sometimes men or sometimes even other women, consider like these unicorn type personalities in the community where they're just this really attractive person who's also into their kink, and they're like, there's like this weird untouchable status for some people.
That's interesting. And it's really interesting that you say specifically males, because this person I'm talking about was actually a girl who was completely straight.
Really?
Yeah, I think she was just like pretty shy, and that happens. But my whole point in going through that was kind of saying, sometimes like if you're planning on meeting up with someone, take 5-10 minutes and get them on the phone maybe and like have a conversation with them first to make sure, they're not super shy and you're not going to be, having this conversation with them in a public place where you feel like it's pulling teeth,
Right. I've found that sometimes, as I've gotten older, when you're past the age of 21, if you can go out to drinks with somebody, and meet casually at a place where maybe it's a little bit louder, so you can kind of have conversation that, it gets drowned out by background noise, but you can still kind of have that at a table with somebody. Once you get like a drink or two into somebody that is a little bit more shy, sometimes they tend to kind of melt a little bit and they mold into the conversation, then start being less awkward once they get to know you. I've had that happen.
That's a really good tip, because this was actually in the middle of the day and we were sitting outside and there was no music and it was just like the outside, like birds chirping and stuff. I swear I could hear crickets. But yeah,
Right.
okay. So some liquid courage would probably help. I mean, that's fun, right? Makes you feel a little bit loose and like you can open up a little bit more. That's a good tip. I like that.
Right. Right. It does help. Just kind of there's always that first little edge that once you knock that off, the nerves kind of relax a little bit and you're more open to talking about, these kinds of things, and then you're less awkward, or you'll open up more maybe about your own personal life. Like a lot of people think that there's nothing really special that goes on in their own personal life, particularly worth talking about, but sometimes small conversation like that can really help open up just a door to other conversations if someone's particularly shy about sharing things.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Are you more of a one-on-one type of person, or do you also go to like group events?
I've gone to group events in the past, and I've had some fairly good experiences with the group events, but sometimes I've been approached by individuals at group events where I felt very uncomfortable being
Really?
approached by them just by the way that they do it. And I mean, they probably don't do it on purpose necessarily. It's probably just them and they're nervous. That's just like they don't have the same level of social boundary or understanding that some other people have built up or developed over time. But yeah, I more so tend to be a one-on-one.
Do you think that's because of the nature of the event, or do you just think they're like that no matter what group setting it is?
Hmm. I mean, I think my personal experience with people is that they generally just tend to be that way.
Right.
I mean, putting people in a group, I mean, sure they can kind of blend in and kind of hide in the background with everyone else at a group event, but at the same time, when they go to interact with somebody one on one at an event, that is kind of their personality. That is kind of them.
So it seems like these events are kind of hit and miss depending on who is going.
Right. Right. So that's why I tend to meet people kind of one on one first, and then you know if I hang out with anybody else past, or if I hang out with them past the first meeting, it generally means that I've in my own mind kind of vetted them into a category like, okay, I can continue to feel safe or not awkward around this person when they talk to me or ask me questions and stuff, so I can invite them in and hang out with them in the future.
And be friends.
Right.
Yeah. And let it happen naturally. After a
Right.
while, after meeting up with a couple people, we talked about, the nerves, especially the nerves that you feel the first time when you meet up with someone. After a while, do you get used to that feeling and you become more confident when you meet up with people, or are you always a little bit nervous?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reflects even on like how people behave even in their vanilla lives. If you're not someone who is used to like public speaking or talking to other people, the more you talk to people, the more you have public speaking sort of encounters, the better you get at it.
Right.
So there are people that I've met that they've met a lot of people in the community, and they're very, very comfortable and straightforward with their conversation, and they're very easy to talk to. But there's other people where you meet them and then you even mention the word diaper and then they just like clam.
Right. Okay, I can see that. I mean, I
Yep.
think we've all started there at some point. I mean, I used to feel that way too before I ever had a podcast or anyone knew about my ABGL side. Like the D word, you just didn't go there. Like that was,
Yeah, like no, trust
yeah.
me. Like even like on there's like a big, and I've seen it on even on FetLife, but there's like a big like some people really can't like they can't bring themselves to type the actual word
To type
diaper,
it,
or type it or say it or whatever. They
right?
either have to say like dip or something else like that, because like the word diaper itself is like some weird classification on its own, where people are just like, oh my gosh, he said it.
Right. It's taboo still. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was younger and I hadn't really accepted this part of me, there would be almost like months where I just kind of forget that I even was into this because, you
Right.
feel so much shame. You're like, "Oh, I don't need this." Especially when you first start dating someone new who's vanilla, and then you're kind of like, "Oh, like I'm so distracted with this new person, like I don't even think about ABDL and diapers." And then like all of a sudden it comes back like full force and you're like, oh yeah, I am into this really weird thing.
And I know you used to be a little before you
Yeah.
transitioned into being a mommy.
Well, I was always a little bit of both, but since I have my partner's a caregiver and not a single ounce of a little, I kind of just was like, okay, well, I'll take what I can get. And I did enjoy playing little, but then as soon as I got into that caregiver role, something like clicked in me and I was like, this is my favorite thing, you know?
Oh yeah, there's a certain level of especially if you're a detail oriented person, you pay attention to all the little small things that a little will give off, certain gestures that sort of change their mood or other stuff like that just kind of it's fun to play with sometimes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you're role playing with someone who's also just as into this as you are, the joy that you can bring to them and like that, it's like a really liberating feeling for them to be able to express themselves fully and like that to be appreciated like in that space and like so that I can help them make them feel cute. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, from my understanding, you're not particularly tall.
No, not at all.
Okay, because I'm not tall either. I'm 5'5".
You're 5'5"? Okay, well, you're 5 inches taller than me.
Right. And so when sometimes when I see you and your partner on Instagram or wherever, he tends to tower over you a little bit.
Which one, my fiance or the little?
The
Probably my
little.
fiance.
Or
Yeah, I don't know if I
oh,
have any pictures of my little standing up next to me. He's usually on the floor. Like whenever I put anyone into little space, I like to, have them lower to the ground because I am shorter. And then when they stand up and they're towering over me, it kind of takes away from that
well,
dynamic
how
a little
how
bit,
how
right?
tall are either of them?
So my fiance is 6 foot, and then my little is 5'8" ish. So he's
Okay.
not the tallest guy either. I can actually pick him up, which is kind of cool, and that adds to the role play. But yeah, the fact that he's little kind of helps. I like that.
So how did you exactly swing that, having a fiance and then also having a little on the side?
Well, from the get go, I was very upfront with my fiance about wanting to be a mommy from day one. I honestly thought if I could get anyone into ABGL and diapers, it would be him. And he did try it for me. And unfortunately, very much not into it. Can't
Mm,
stand the feeling of a diaper, makes him feel hot and uncomfortable. And, so he'd do it like a couple times here and there. And I would be grateful and I'd really enjoy it. But after a while, I was just like, hey, TK, like, I really, really want to experience being a mommy. So would you be okay with me role playing with other people virtually so I can kind of express this side of myself? And he was actually like, yeah, you should do that. Like, I don't want to hold you back from, experiencing this. And so it started out with that. And I would have a couple virtual littles, I guess. And then as time went on, I met my boy and we didn't role play at all for the first year. We just kind of talked and got to know each other. And then one day he sent me pictures of himself and I was like, hey, this guy's like, he's good looking. And I was like, okay. And so I started asking about his little side a little bit more. And I realized like our kinks were in total alignment. And so I asked TK if I could role play with him virtually. And then he was like, sure. And everything checked out. Like my fiance will do a quick like Google search on them, on their real name, make sure they are who they say they are.
mm-hmm.
And then the opportunity came for me to go fly across the country and visit him. And I really did not think TK was going to agree to that. I went to him
No,
and
most partners would not. That would be like, all right, you've crossed a line of like.
right, like you want to fly, what you want to fly across the country to meet an online person to role play with? Like,
And then you
no.
want to change their
Diaper,
diapers?
you're
It's
going
like
to.
it
I didn't
very
even
it,
think
no, it's
that about
very
that
much
part, but yeah.
yeah, no, it's very much like in that realm of okay.
That doesn't make sense to me. But no, honestly, he was like, okay, I want you to experience this. But we're also like a very non-traditional couple. We have engaged in a lot of group play stuff and, have experimented with being open. And so I don't know. He's just very understanding in that way. And he knows that this isn't a role that he wants to play. So it's kind of almost like a relief to him that he doesn't have to be something other than what he is for me, you know? So,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I mean, me personally, like I've been with people in the past where they've talked about kind of being in like poly relationships, and every time I've told myself, yeah, I could probably be okay with that. My instincts as, you know, someone who's with somebody immediately kicks in and I'm like, no, you can't touch them. They're mine. Blah, blah, blah. Like I'm very much a singular person, you know?
right. Yeah.
And
I
so
mean, it's definitely not for everyone. I don't know why I'm able to share easier. I mean, he's had littles in the past too, and we've done threesomes with my friends and stuff. Like, I don't know why I have been okay with sharing. It's just part of my personality, I guess. I mean,
yeah, there's a unique thing that me personally, I'll never understand or because I'm not that type, but you know, I get over time when I've seen more of it or I've talked to people that are in the community that have engaged in sort of like poly play with other people, I've sort of gotten a better glimpse into that world. And I
right.
could understand why it works for some people and not for others.
Well,
And I'm
sometimes
just too jealous.
no,
I'm
I
just
get
too
it. I
jealous.
mean, I am not trying to sit here and claim that I never get jealous when I hear him, you know, laughing in another room when he's on the phone with someone else who I know. Like, I always know, you know, there's always going to be that feeling of jealousy, but I have to keep in mind, like, at the end of the day, he's mine. And also, I really want to experience my kink in real life. Like, this is very much a real part of me that needs to be expressed. And if I wasn't able to, I don't know if I would be okay with that. You know, like
Hmm.
it's got to come out somewhere. You know,
Right. How often do you actually go and visit your boy?
usually just once every few months. You know, I don't. I mean, I would love to go more often, but I want to be respectful of TK. You know, like not flying over there like every week. I mean, he lives in the Midwest, so it's not like a super quick flight or a drive.
Oh,
It's
so he's in the same neighborhood I am, kind of.
yeah, and actually every ABDL I talk to seems to live in the Midwest, so there must be something in the water over there. I don't know what's going on, but I
You know,
swear they're
I mean,
all over there.
there's a couple big hot spots in the Midwest. Like you have your Chicago ABDLs, though that's a pretty big one. Then you have Colorado, that's starting to pick up a little bit, and that's a pretty big one. Then you have California, which isn't really the Midwest,
Right.
but then you've also got places like Atlanta. And I mean, it's not. It's always been weird because me personally, I'm from Minnesota, so when I first got into this, there was very much a closeted community, in my
Okay.
opinion, in Minnesota. It was very, very hard to find people who were into this. Um, and even still to this day, there's a community here, a regular community, but for the most part, I feel like I've met enough people in the local community that are the active ones,
Right.
where it's like a group of like maybe 30 people, a good 30 people that are regularly active doing events and other stuff like that locally, and then there's a couple fringe people who pop up every now and then in the community that go in and out that aren't as regular or aren't as present or either hiding in the background kind of for a while.
Right.
That the community doesn't seem very large here.
At
Whereas
least
like when you go
the in-person one, right?
right, yeah, but whereas like when you go online and you look for like ABDLs like and where they are, like you look up like ABDLs in Chicago and they're all over the place in Chicago. They're all over or
I
in
wonder what it
California.
is. I like there's these hot spots of ABDLs and I'm like, was there something I just can't explain it. I don't know. But
Well, I mean, I think part of it I think has to do with a lot of other things that happen around those areas like a lot of times like if you get like a big pride parade or something like that, a lot of ABDLs show up at pride parades and other stuff like that. And I know sometimes like Chicago, they have theirs. That Chicago also has like CapCon, which I'm really hoping to get to at some point.
once this pandemic is over.
Right. I mean, I haven't been able to go in years past. It just hasn't been able to work with my work schedule and everything else. Or other places like TeddyCon and other stuff like that. Like those places where those events take place, there tend to be more ABDLs in those areas, it seems. But out here, I mean, there's the local munch that happens maybe once a month, and other than like occasionally like some people meeting with each other in private that are friends, between there's not a whole lot else going on.
It's really hard to gauge it too, because if there's not a solid group of even 30 people in your area, you're going to just have a bunch of lurkers, probably people who are online in the space, but they don't know how to meet up with people in person or like go to any of these events, or maybe these events don't exist because they're in a small town. And so it's so hard to gauge like how many people are actually into this. It's crazy.
Right. And there are times when even people that have been in the community have come to local events, and they've actually been cast out and barred from coming to local events because they don't know how to respect people's personal space and other things like that.
That
So,
actually makes me feel good that they can bar people, because that makes me feel more safe going to some of these events.
right, yeah. Although that isn't a thing at like Capcom and stuff like that. Those places are just like buy a ticket and show up. Like there's not like those aren't like vetted events. Those are like you're an ABDL, buy a ticket, show up at our hotel, come down to the event and just do whatever.
So that's the beautiful
Um,
thing. It's like, oh, anyone can come, but that's also the bad thing of, oh, anyone can come here.
yes, it's true. And over the years, I've seen some nightmare stories, from some people that have had really bad experiences with certain events.
Because there wasn't vetting going on.
Right. I mean, a large portion of what I've seen go wrong tends to happen with females more often,
Right.
just because there's a lot of ABDL males, and there's a lot of them that just have zero sense of boundary towards females. And so when they meet one at an event like this, they tend to get very close or make inappropriate gestures. And it's kind of a shame too, because as a male in the ABDL community, who's, I have standards of people who, like, if I'm going to consider somebody as a partner in my own personal life, like, I want them to have, their own professional career. I want them to have at least some sort of motivation and care for their own self figure.
Right.
Just a couple criteria that, outside of their kink, will carry through to good habits and good lifestyle behaviors throughout the entire process. Because there are a lot of people I've noticed that deal with a lot of personal mental issues in the community.
I've noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I try to make sure that anybody that I'm going to personally be involved with has these things set up for themselves, because otherwise you can get into some really uncomfortable territory very fast.
I agree, especially when you meet people online, and if sometimes you think you can trust someone, and it turns out they're not the most mentally stable person, and they can turn on you. I've heard about horror stories like that happening, where people get offended when you don't write back as quickly as you should, or they take it really personally if you want to start hanging out with them. And so you definitely have to be really, really careful about the information that you give out, and vetting people yourself, having certain criteria. You don't want to, it sounds like, maybe someone in this community might want to find what I coin a true baby, which is literally just someone who wants to do this 24/7. But for the most part, if you're looking for a friend or for a potential partner, you want to see them succeed in life and have a job and have personal goals and take care of themselves, and not just be literally completely dependent on you, right?
Right. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't have any issue if, like, because I make fairly good money in my job that I do. I'm a mechanical engineer. So eventually at some point, because I'm only 26, 10 years down the line, I will probably make fairly good money where I could support somebody indefinitely if I really wanted to,
Right.
for a 24/7 lifestyle or whatever. But at the same time, I would personally like to have a dynamic that I could have all the time, but where somebody could, go and have their own personal space at work, have their own professional career, be financially independent, aside from me. And then, you know, when when coming home, that dynamic can engage again in its physical presence. But just like, you know, keep it on the down low during the day when someone's at work, you know.
Absolutely. It's that dichotomy that makes it even more appealing for me, you know, because my little, you know, he works so hard during the day and he takes good care of his body. And all of that is attractive, right? That's what attracts you to someone when they have these goals and aspirations in life. And then it's really that much more fulfilling when you can turn that brain off and like get them to submit and just be a baby for a while.
Oh yeah, it's there is a level of satisfaction, you know, that I get from knowing that, you know, someone could take care of themselves all they want. They've been taking care of themselves up to this point in their life, you know. But then when you get in sort of in that dynamic with them, that they sort of forfeit a level of trust and vulnerability over to you for you to then take over and kind of take care of them in this really vulnerable state.
Yeah, to me, that's what makes it so special.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a really big important thing for me personally that I've found over the years as I've transitioned from being a little into a caregiver, what I look for, you know, in a partner as far as down the road, like something that'll actually turn into like a real type of relationship where you could end up marrying somebody and still have that dynamic down the road.
Absolutely. You got to be compatible on all the levels.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Doug, for coming on the show. I really enjoyed getting to know you and talking to you. And you even spent it on me and asked me some questions. So that was cool. I'm not used to that, but I liked it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I couldn't not come on the podcast and then, you know, ask a few questions of my own, you know, to kind of, because I mean, you've always been out there for so long in the community. And then it's like, now that I get the opportunity to actually sit down and ask questions to you, you know, it's always refreshing to know that there are other people that have these types of goals, aspirations, same sort of guidelines and procedures for meeting people in the community, and the respect that they have for going about exploring the ABDL lifestyle.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, I'll be in touch with you soon, and don't be a stranger.
Yeah, no problem. We'll definitely keep in touch.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Yep. Thanks, love.
Bye.
Bye-bye.